Somewhere in the pine forests of East Texas, a biologist kneels beside the last wild red wolf in America. She's old, sick, her pack is gone killed by hunters, cars, disease, and something worse, genetics. For decades, red wolves had been interbreeding with coyotes. The pure bloodline was disappearing. Hybridization was erasing them faster than bullets ever could. So scientists made a desperate decision: capture every remaining red wolf, all of them. Take them out of the wild completely. It was the only way to save them, and it worked. By 1987, red wolves were breeding in captivity. By 1988, they were released back into the wild in North Carolina. The species had been saved, except it hadn't, because in 2025, red wolves are critically endangered again, functionally extinct in the wild. Again, this is the only extinction that happened twice, and the story of why is almost nothing to do with biology. Before we talk about extinction, let's talk about what red wolves actually were. Smaller than gray wolves, bigger than coyotes, rust-colored fur, long legs, intelligent yellow eyes. Red wolves Canis, rufous once, roamed from Texas to Florida, north to Pennsylvania, forests, swamps, coastal plains, anywhere prey was abundant. They weren't the apex predator of the West, like grizzlies or gray wolves. They were the ghost of the South, silent, adaptable, thriving in places too hot, too humid, too mosquito-infested for other large carnivores. Indigenous peoples hunted alongside them. Early colonists feared them wolves killing livestock, threatening settlements. But red wolves had a survival strategy gray wolves didn't. They were flexible. When forests were cleared, they adapted to farmland edges. When prey declined, they switched species. When humans encroached, they went nocturnal. For centuries, that flexibility kept them alive. Until it didn't, because by the 1960s, red wolves faced a problem no amount of adaptability could solve. Their habitat was gone, forests clear-cut, swamps drained, prey hunted out, and when wolves can't find other wolves, they breed with whatever canid is available. Coyotes by 1970, pure red wolves were so rare that most wolves in Texas were actually hybrids, part wolf, part coyote, genetically diluted. Scientists call it genetic swamping when a rare species interbreeds with a common one until the rare species simply dissolves, and red wolves were drowning in coyote genes. 1973, the Endangered Species Act is signed into law. Red wolves are among the first species listed, but listing a species doesn't save it if there's nothing left to save. Biologists estimated fewer than 100 pure red wolves remain most in coastal Texas and Louisiana, and even that number was suspect. How do you tell a pure wolf from a hybrid in the field? The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service launched an emergency plan. Capture every remaining red wolf, breed them in captivity, and maybe if it worked reintroduce them someday. Between 1974 and 1980, over 400 canids were captured across Texas and Louisiana. But here's the heartbreaking part. Most weren't pure red wolves. Scientists used skull measurements, genetic tests, behavior assessments. Out of 400 animals, only 14 were confirmed pure red wolves. 14? The rest were hybrids or coyotes. Those 14 wolves became the entire captive breeding population, the last of their kind. The genetic bottleneck was catastrophic, but it was the only option, and in 1980, the last wild red wolf was captured in coastal Texas. The species was extinct in the wild. But, unlike the passenger pigeon, unlike the Carolina parakeet, this extinction was intentional, controlled, a last-ditch effort to save them. The 14 wolves were sent to the Point Defiance Zoo in Tacoma, Washington, then scattered 2 breeding facilities across the country, and against all odds, they bred. By 1987, there were 63 red wolves in captivity. Genetic diversity was low but stable. Pups were healthy. The species had survived. Now came the hard part. Putting them back? Why North Carolina? Red wolves had been extinct there since the 1800s. It wasn't their historical core range. That was Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. But North Carolina had something Texas didn't. Federal land. Lots of it. The Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge, 152,000 acres of swamp, forest, and coastland in eastern North Carolina. Remote, sparsely populated. Plenty of deer, and critically, federal jurisdiction. Meaning the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service could manage the reintroduction without state interference. In September 1987, 4 pairs of captive-bred red wolves were released. It was the first time an extinct and wild carnivore had ever been reintroduced. Nobody knew if it would work. The wolves were fitted with radio collars. Biologists tracked them 24/7, monitored kills, denning sites, movements, and for the first few years, it worked beautifully. The wolves hunted deer, raccoons, nutria. They established territories. They bred. By 1992, there were wild-born pups, the first red wolves born in the wild in over a decade. By 2000, the population had grown to around 100 to 120 wolves across 5 counties. Scientists called it a miracle, a conservation success story, proof that extinction could be reversed. But there were cracks forming. Coyotes which hadn't been in eastern North Carolina when the program started were moving in, and some red wolves were breeding with them. Hybridization again. biologists tried to manage it. They sterilized coyotes, removed hybrids, released more pure red wolves. But coyotes kept coming, and then the politics started. Red wolves don't just stay in wildlife refuges. They wander, cross roads, enter private land, and sometimes they kill livestock. A calf here, a goat there, occasionally chickens. For ranchers in eastern North Carolina, the wolves were a nightmare they didn't ask for. Unlike Yellowstone, where tourism offset losses and wolf watching became an economy, rural North Carolina saw no benefit, just costs. Compensation programs existed, but like everywhere, proving a wolf kill was hard. And even when ranchers were paid, it didn't fix the frustration. By 2010, complaints were escalating. Then came the political shift. In 2012, the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, the state agency, began pushing back against the federal program. They argued red wolves weren't native to North Carolina, historically questionable, but technically true for the recent era. Hybridization with coyotes made the pure red wolf concept meaningless. Landowners' rights were being violated. In 2014, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service caved to pressure. They stopped releasing captive bred wolves. They stopped removing coyotes from wolf territories. They stopped managing hybridization. Essentially, they abandoned the program, and the wild population collapsed. From 100 to 120 wolves in 2006, to 40 in 2014, to 7 by 2020. 7 wild red wolves, all in one small area of North Carolina. The species was functionally extinct in the wild again, but this time it wasn't genetics. It wasn't habitat loss. It was politics. In 2014, conservation groups sued the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The lawsuit argued the agency had violated the Endangered Species Act by abandoning the red wolf recovery program, and in 2018, they won. A federal judge ruled that Fish and Wildlife had to resume recovery efforts, release more wolves, manage hybridization, protect the population. The program restarted. Sort of. In 2021, new wolves were released, but only a handful, and only in the original refuge area. By 2024, the wild population had climbed to around 20 to 25 individuals. Better than 7, but nowhere near viable, and the political opposition hasn't gone away. North Carolina legislators continue to challenge federal authority. Some ranchers shoot wolves claiming they're coyotes or self-defense, and here's the cruelest irony. Texas, where red wolves actually evolved, where they ruled for thousands of years, has 0 red wolf reintroduction efforts. None proposed, none planned. Because Texas is a state-right stronghold, federal endangered species programs are politically toxic. So red wolves remain trapped in a tiny corner of North Carolina, a state they barely historically inhabited, because it's the only place the federal government has jurisdiction. Meanwhile, the swamps of East Texas, their true home, are filled with coyotes. Let's compare. Yellowstone wolves 1995, released in a national park equals full federal control. Iconic location equals public support. Tourism revenue, visible success equals rivers changing, ecosystem healing. Political will equals bipartisan support for national parks. Result, 100 plus wolves. Stable population, ongoing success. Red wolves 1987, released in a wildlife refuge equals adjacent private land conflicts. Remote location equals no tourism economy. Invisible success equals ecological benefits exist, but no rivers dramatically changing. Political will equals fragile. State versus federal battles. Result, 20 wolves. Functionally extinct, constant crisis. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Both programs had the science. Both had the biology. Both proved that reintroduction can work. The difference wasn't ecology. It was politics, economics, geography, public perception. Yellowstone wolves had a protected fortress, the park, an economic incentive, tourism, a visible, dramatic success story, rivers. Bipartisan political support. Red wolves had fragmented habitat, private land everywhere. No economic benefit for locals. A subtle, hard-to-see success, ecosystem balance, constant political opposition, and that's why one succeeded and one failed. Twice. Because here's the thing people don't understand about conservation. Science is the easy part. Breeding wolves in captivity, we can do that. Releasing them, done. Monitoring populations, we have the technology. The hard part is convincing people to share space with predators that don't directly benefit them. And when that political will collapses, biology doesn't matter. As of 2025, there are approximately 20 to 25 red wolves in the wild, all in North Carolina. 250 in captivity breeding facilities across the U.S. The captive population is stable, genetically managed, healthy, but captivity isn't conservation. It's a waiting room. And the question is, waiting for what? Some scientists argue we should try again in a different location, somewhere with more federal land, better public support. The Great Smoky Mountains were proposed in the 1990s but rejected due to opposition. Other sites in the southeast have been floated. None have gained traction because every potential reintroduction site faces the same problem red wolves have always faced. People, ranchers who don't want to lose livestock, hunters who don't want competition for deer, politicians who don't want federal mandates. landowners who don't want their property rights infringed. And unlike Yellowstone, where wolves became a symbol of wildness, a tourist attraction, a source of pride, red wolves remain ghosts, invisible, controversial, unwanted. But here's what we know. Red wolves can survive in the wild. They did for thousands of years. They can again. The question isn't biological. It's whether we humans will let them. And right now, the answer is barely. Red wolves exist in a kind of limbo. Not extinct, but not truly wild. Alive, but only because we keep them on life support. And every few years, when funding is threatened or political winds shift, they inch closer to the edge. This is the only species to go extinct in the wild twice. But unless something changes, it won't be the last time. 1980, the last wild red wolf is captured in Texas. Only 7 wild red wolves remain in North Carolina. 40 years, 2 extinctions. Same species. But here's what's haunting. We know how to save red wolves. We have the science, the facilities, the wolves themselves, breeding in captivity. What we don't have is the will. Not the biological will, the political will. Because saving a species isn't just about biology. It's about whether people, ranchers, hunters, politicians, voters decide that species is worth the inconvenience. Yellowstone's wolves proved ecosystems can heal when we let them. Red wolves proved that healing only happens when we choose it. And right now, most of America hasn't chosen red wolves. Texas, their true home, doesn't want them back. North Carolina, where they're barely holding Ennis, divided, and the federal government doing the bare minimum to avoid another lawsuit. So red wolves linger, not thriving, not extinct, just waiting. Waiting for us to decide if they get a third chance, or if this time, we let them fade completely. The red wolf didn't go extinct because of bad luck, or genetics, or even habitat loss. It went extinct because we stopped caring. Twice. The question is, will there be a third time? Thanks for watching Animal Channel Space. If this story frustrated you, angered you, or made you wonder what conservation really means, good, that's the point. Because red wolves are still here, barely, and what happens next is up to us. Subscribe for more stories of species caught between science and politics, hope and failure, extinction and survival. And share this. Because the more people know red wolves exist, the harder it is to let them disappear. They survived once. Maybe they can again.